Hi, gang. I'm Derek Garza. You know, there's nothing like watching children at play. Happy, healthy, and safe. It reminds us why it's so important for us to be good parents. But sometimes there are dangers that even good parents don't see. Hidden away from sight and often difficult to recognize. Today we will be discussing a danger that is far too real for our youngsters. A danger you might have given some thought to, but never really took seriously. Until now. We'll be hearing from some teens about this problem, as well as a few adults, so listen closely. I invite you to join us as we talk about caffeine, your kids, and you. Caffeine. It seems like it's everywhere these days. Coffees, teas, and energy drinks are common sources of caffeine enjoyed by adults. But for our young people, the primary source of caffeine comes in carbonated beverages. The caffeine content of many of these beverages can range from 20 to 50, 60, even 70 milligrams. Now, it is important to realize that kids these days don't have to go to some shady coffee shop or cafe in order to obtain these carbonated beverages. Many of them can get them from their friends, from schools, and even from their own homes.
It's just so easy to get caffeine, you know? There were always parties, and the cool kids would have drinks with caffeine in them there, or whatever. Sometimes I would buy a Coke or something from a vending machine or like at a gas station. And it just kind of makes you think, you know, how it's not even a big deal to get caffeine.
In such a crazy mixed up world, it's no doubt that caffeine in its many forms is readily abundant for your children to get a hold of if left unsupervised. Take a minute now and check your refrigerator and other common areas for storing beverages to see what sources of caffeine your children may be getting into. So now that you're aware of how easy it is for kids to get a hold of caffeine, it is important to take a moment to look more closely at how caffeine affects the body and the brain.
My parents would really get on my case about caffeine. I was like, what's the big deal? Everyone does it.
Rick asked a very good question. What is the big deal about caffeine? Well, let's take a look. Trimethylxanthine, the chemical compound commonly known as caffeine, may just be the most popular drug on the streets. It is primarily a stimulant on the central nervous system. In moderate doses, caffeine can increase alertness, reduce fine motor coordination, cause insomnia, nervousness, headaches, or dizziness. But in higher doses, well, it can be fatal. You see, caffeine enters the bloodstream through the stomach and small intestine and begins taking effect in as little as 15 minutes after ingestion. Once in the body, caffeine will stay around for hours. It takes about 6 hours for 1/2 of the caffeine to be eliminated. This is serious stuff, folks. What truly makes caffeine consumption worrisome is its addictive qualities. Even one dose can get a user hooked for life. Oftentimes, the caffeine addict isn't fully aware of the addiction because caffeine use has become so commonplace in the user's life. Let's listen in.
Well, at first it didn't really seem like that big of a deal, I just have a Coke in the morning, right? Pretty simple. But, soon after that, I needed that Coke, just to get started. And if I didn't have it, I had a headache, I'd lose focus all day long, I was cranky, and, soon I started to realize that I was an addict.
I was like, no, this isn't happening to me. Not me, I mean, at the time, I was still getting good grades. I still had all my friends. I was like, so normal. I thought, there's no way that I could be addicted to caffeine.
I didn't really notice anything different at first, except maybe that I was spending more of my allowance on soda or whatever. But when I really stopped to think about it, which didn't happen very much, by the way, because my brain was always buzzing, I was carrying the stuff in my backpack just so I could sneak some between classes, just to stay alert, just to stay normal.
So how do you know if your child is using caffeine? Well, the first step is just to ask directly, are you using caffeine? Be firm but understanding. Many teens will automatically assume their parents are on the offensive when it comes to a touchy subject like caffeine use. If your child denies it and you still feel something may be up, it's better to be safe than sorry. The next step is to check for a few signs. Is there obvious caffeine-related paraphernalia in their room? Regular caffeine users generate a trail of containers and lids. Have they been using the bathroom more frequently than usual? A caffeine addiction typically demands an increased consumption of liquids. Has money gone missing recently? Your child may be trying to hide their caffeine habit from you, but the costs catch up to every addict eventually. In addition to these important clues, also observe your child firsthand for the effects of caffeine use. Are they irritable first thing in the morning or late at night? Do they regularly skip breakfast or are they secretive about their diet? Do they seem nervous or on edge when you pick them up from school or while they're watching TV? Of course, if you catch your child using caffeine, you'll know for sure. In any case, it is important to let your child know that caffeine is a dangerous and addictive substance and it is not allowed in your house under any circumstances. Again, being firm and clear lets your child know where you stand as to whether or not caffeine use is considered acceptable behavior. Now you might be wondering why it's important for you to monitor your child for caffeine addiction. Just like many of the kids in our program, you might be wondering, what is the big deal? You might even consider telling yourself that there's no need to worry, that you'll let your child figure it out on their own and there's no need for you to step in and intervene.
Well, I didn't really realize how serious of a problem it was, what with all the gangs roaming the street, the underage unprotected sex. I didn't realize how serious of a problem it was until it was nearly too late.
And when I think back on it, I ask myself, how could I not have known? It was right there in front of my face. The receipts from the coffee shops, the quarters that kept disappearing off my dresser, the mood swings that I thought were just, were just normal. But I didn't pay attention. I didn't think it could happen to my son.
It got out of control, but I couldn't really tell, Like, it became so much of my life that I didn't feel like myself without it. I started doing whatever it took to get my fix.
Well, things got to the point where I had to ask myself, what are you doing? What are you doing with yourself? I was putting so many things on the line just so I could get more. My job, schoolwork, my girlfriend, even things at home. Caffeine became the center of my life. Caffeine became my life.
When some of my friends first began to notice, they didn't know what to say. It was like, I knew I was addicted, I think. But I kept telling myself I could stop whenever I wanted to. But I didn't want to stop right now, is all.
By the time I forced myself to acknowledge what was going on, it was so much worse than I'd imagined.
I knew I had hit bottom when I literally had nothing left. No friends, no family, no job, no money, nothing. I'd constantly get these headaches. My palms would start to sweat and my heart would just race, just pounding inside my chest. And I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think. All I could do was do the caffeine. More and more. It was a mess. And I didn't see a way out.
Now you might be wondering, where did this threat, this epidemic, come from? Isn't caffeine a naturally occurring substance? Isn't it supposed to be safe? Let's take a look at the nature of caffeine a bit more closely. Of course, caffeine has existed in any number of forms for thousands of years. Caffeine occurs naturally in the tea leaf, coffee bean, cola nut, and cacao pod. Cultures worldwide have enjoyed trace amounts of caffeine in any number of their regional dishes since before anyone can remember. But recently, caffeine has become more concentrated, more potent, and more dangerous as it is extracted and purified. At the same time, it has become more acceptable, more cool to drink caffeinated beverages. Today, it is estimated that more than 80% of American adults consume caffeine on a daily basis. The medical costs nationally are staggering. Caffeine is proven to decrease fertility, negatively impact the developing fetus of a pregnant woman, increase heart problems, disrupt circadian rhythm, decrease higher level brain function, and of course, fosters an ever-increasing addiction to caffeine. So why would anyone, much less the majority of Americans, willingly put themselves under the influence of such a harmful substance?
We live in a stimulation society. Constant noise, movies, magazines, television, music videos, freeways, high-speed internet. There's the fast food. So you've got instant everything, turbocharged anything. Caffeine fits right in there. It gets us up in the morning, keeps us going during the day, and it's there in the evening so we can work late, only to do the same thing the next day. It's become almost necessary, unfortunately, in order to keep up with everything else. Caffeine use starts early, sometimes very early.
You know, lifelong caffeine addicts don't start their habit by guzzling whole pots of coffee, going on week-long espresso binges, or snorting packs of crushed Dexatrim. Not right away. Maybe not even for a while. Caffeine peddlers have known for decades that a caffeine addiction must start early, or it might not start at all. There's an assortment of products that contain smaller amounts of caffeine, what you might call gateway caffeinated substances, to get our kids hooked at an early age. Chocolate products with colorful packaging are an appealing and innocent-looking source of caffeine. Often caffeine is found in products where it seems unlikely that there would be any. Time and again, otherwise wholesome products are coffee-flavored to introduce and normalize children to the otherwise unappealing taste of coffee. Many products claiming to enhance alertness or performance contain high concentrations of caffeine as well. And of course, there are carbonated beverages, the real cornerstone of gateway caffeine addictions. It is worth mentioning that while decaffeinated versions of many of these products are available on the streets, they often carry with them considerable social stigmatism.
I got a lot of flack from the other guys on the team. You know, they'd go, "Oh, decaf, you must be a real wimp. Only wussies drink decaf." I wanted to be one of the guys, you know? I didn't want to be left out.
I mean, it's hard enough fitting in to begin with. I didn't want to wear the wrong clothes or say the wrong thing. But once when I tried to get off caffeine by switching to decaf, my friends didn't want to talk to me anymore. They were like, "Oh, can't you handle it? It's not a big deal. If you really want to date, like, one of the popular guys, you really have to grow up and quit being such a little girl."
Among drugs used, caffeine is a bit unique in that it is inherently social. We have phrases like, "Let's get some coffee," that signify a real link between caffeine use and acceptance into one's peer group. The caffeine industry knows this, and they love it. It's been very well orchestrated, very thorough, this coalescence of habitual caffeine use with societal norms. Of course they offer decaf. It's like non-alcoholic beer. It's a great theory, folks, but that's it.
So with such powerful physiological and social forces working against you and your child, what can you do as a parent to make sure your kids stay off of caffeine now and for good? Well, the answer is a lot. As a parent, you are a guiding force in your child's life. And although it may not seem like it sometimes, your child really does look to you and the example you set. Be firm and clear. Try to understand where your child is coming from and be sure to listen to what they have to say. Most importantly, let your child know that caffeine isn't cool and certainly isn't no big deal.
Well, you know, I'm just glad my folks pulled me aside and said, "Hey, what are you doing with yourself?" You know, it really opened up the chance for me to ask myself that question. And that was the first step to breaking my addiction.
It's so good to have her back, and to see her bright shining face in the morning, and to know that she's happy and healthy and caffeine free.
I really like who I am now, you know? Like, I realize it's never going to be easy and I'm always just one fix away from being addicted to caffeine again. But honestly, I don't think about it anymore. I've got quarterfinals for drill squad coming up and I think Mike's gonna ask me to the prom.
I guess for me it felt really good just to get things out in the open again. It felt really good to, you know, talk to my parents without holding back or hiding something. I'm really getting into helping my dad with his baseball card collection, and I think I realize he's a pretty cool guy.
Gosh, for a while there, I thought maybe I'd lost him. It was rough for a bit, sure, but it was worth it. And I think knowing how much I love my son helped me get through the hard times.
Well, it's never easy, of course not. I still battle with withdrawals. Sometimes it's tough to say no when a buddy wants to, you know, go and get a cup of coffee. But I know I can do it. I can get through it. My counselor told me the caffeine addiction is a tough one to beat. But it's like, you know, I am tougher than the addiction. I have to be. Because my parents are counting on me. And I'd never want to let them down. Because I love them. And I know that they love me.
If parents want to have a positive impact on their child, if they want to instill their child with lasting values and a healthy attitude towards staying caffeine-free, it really starts at home. It really starts with the parents. Really, it does.
No one said being a good parent was easy, especially when it comes to sensitive issues like caffeine use. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is against you and the values you want to pass on to your children. It's important, especially in times like these, to remember that you as the parent are the best source of decision-making skills for your youngster in the tough times ahead. I hope this program has proven useful in confronting such important issues. I'm Derek Garza. Thanks for watching Caffeine, Your Kids, and You.